At 1800 hours on September 12, 1857, Captain William Lewis Herndon stood on the bridge of the SS Central America, 160 miles off the Carolina coast, and watched his ship die. The sidewheel steamer pitched 40 degrees to port. Water poured through hull seams that had split like paper. The main pumps had failed 3 hours earlier. Below deck, 578 passengers and crew formed bucket brigades in chest-deep water that rose 6 inches every minute. The storm had been battering them for 30 hours. Nobody was winning anymore. In the cargo hold sat 3 tons of California gold, coins, ingots, and raw dust worth $2 million in 1857 currency. More than $600 million today. The accumulated dreams of 3 years of gold rush fever, heading home to families who'd waited, to businesses that depended on it, to an economy teetering on the edge of collapse. Herndon had one choice left: abandon ship or go down fighting. He chose both. The SS Central America had departed from Colon, Panama on September 3, 1857. A routine voyage, the ship carried 477 passengers, most of them gold miners and businessmen returning from California. Another 101 crew members operated the vessel. The passenger manifest read like a cross-section of frontier America. Families, single men, women traveling alone, children. The wealthy and the desperate, united by one thing: they were going home. The ship herself was impressive. 280 feet long, 40-foot beam, 2,141 gross tonnage. Built in 1853 as the SS George Law, she'd been renamed and refitted for the Panama to New York route. Twin-side paddle wheels, each 30 feet in diameter, driven by a single-cylinder steam engine producing 900 horsepower. 2 masts carried auxiliary sails. Top speed, 12 knots in calm seas. She was designed for tropical waters and predictable weather. Not for hurricanes. Captain Herndon was 43 years old. 28 years of naval experience, commander of the Amazon River Exploration Expedition in 1851, author of 2 volumes documenting South American geography. He'd commanded the Central America for 2 years without incident. His reputation was spotless. The first 8 days were perfect. Smooth seas, favorable winds, the engine running steady at 70 RPM. They made scheduled stops at Havana on September 8th, taking on coal and additional passengers. By September 10th, they were maintaining 11 knots northward along the eastern seaboard, paralleling the Gulf Stream. New York was 3 days away. At 0400 on September 11th, the barometer began falling. By noon, it had dropped from 31 to 29. 4 inches of mercury. The sky turned grey-green. Swells built from 3 feet to 8. Herndon ordered the sails furled and relied entirely on steam power. The ship could handle rough weather. They'd wait it out. The barometer kept falling. At 1800 on September 11th, it read 28. 8. The hurricane hit with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Waves crested at 30 feet, smashing over the bow and flooding the forward compartments. The paddle wheels, designed for propulsion, not survival, acted like anchors in the heavy seas. Each wave that struck them sent shuddering impacts through the entire frame. The ship began leaking, not from a single breach, from everywhere. The hull was wooden, held together with iron fasteners and corked seams. Under normal stress, it was watertight. Under the continuous pounding of a Category 2 hurricane, those seams opened. Water infiltrated through 1,000 tiny gaps. The pumps, 2 steam-driven bilge pumps capable of moving 2,000 gallons per minute, engaged immediately. They couldn't keep up. By midnight on September 11th, there were 3 feet of water in the hold. The pumps were running at maximum capacity. The engine room crew worked in knee-deep water, shoveling coal into the boilers to maintain steam pressure for both propulsion and pumping. If the boiler fires went out, the pumps stopped. If the pumps stopped, they sank. Herndon ordered all able-bodied men to form bucket brigades. 76 men lined up from the flooding compartments to the deck. They passed buckets in continuous chains, 20 hours straight. Each man moved thousands of gallons by hand. Their arms went numb, their backs seized. They kept going because stopping meant drowning. The women and children huddled in the saloon, the only area still relatively dry, They sang hymns, prayed, comforted terrified children who didn't understand why the floor wouldn't stop moving. At 0600 on September 12th, the main bilge pump failed. A drive belt snapped under continuous operation. The engine room crew tried to rig a replacement while standing in chest-deep water. It took 45 minutes. Every minute the water rose another 6 inches. The second pump failed at 1100. A bearing seized, then the pump shaft sheared. Unrepairable. Now they had only buckets and the knowledge that they were losing. The water in the hold had reached 8 feet. The ship sat lower in the water, making each wave more devastating. The cargo, 3 tons of gold, sat on the bottom of the flooded hold, dead weight pulling them down. At 1400, Herndon ordered distress signals. They fired the ship's cannon at regular intervals. The sound carried for miles, but in a hurricane, miles meant nothing. They were 160 miles offshore. No other vessels were visible. The storm had cleared the shipping lanes. They were alone. At 1530, a sail appeared on the horizon. The brig marine spotted the distress signals. Captain Hiram Burt fought through the heavy seas to reach them. His ship was smaller, 400 tons, but it was intact and floating. The Central America was dying. Everyone knew it. Herndon made the call, women and children first. The transfer began at 1600. The 2 ships couldn't come alongside in the heavy seas. They'd smash each other apart. Instead, the Central America's crew launched 2 lifeboats. Each boat could hold 12 people. The journey from one ship to the other, across 200 yards of churning ocean, took 20 minutes, then 20 minutes back. 99 women and children made it to the marine. Each transfer was a gamble. The lifeboats, designed for calm water rescues, struggled in 20-foot seas. They had to time each launch between waves, row frantically during the troughs, then time the boarding onto the marine's heaving deck. One miscalculation meant capsizing. Capsizing in these seas meant death. The last woman transferred at 1745. Darkness was coming. The storm wasn't letting up. At 1800, Captain Herndon faced his remaining passengers and crew. 479 men. The marine could take more, but the transfers were getting more dangerous. The Central America was settling deeper. Its paddle wheels barely cleared the water. The next big wave could be the last. Herndon asked for volunteers to man the pumps one more time. Every man stepped forward. They bailed for 3 more hours. Not because they thought it would save the ship. Because it might buy time for another rescue vessel to arrive. Because giving up was worse than drowning. At 2000, the ship's carpenter reported water in the engine room had reached the boiler fireboxes. The fires went out. The engine stopped. Without steam pressure, the ship had no power, no steerage, no control. It wallowed in the troughs between waves, taking the full force of each strike broadside. The hull groaned under stresses it was never designed to withstand. At 2100 on September 12, 1857, the SS Central America began her final descent. The stern went first. The weight of the engine and the flooded aft compartments pulled it down. The bow lifted, 45 degrees skyward. Men slid down the tilting deck, grabbing rigging, rails, anything. Some jumped. The hurricane winds were still blowing at 80 miles per hour. The ocean temperature was 76 degrees. In these conditions, hypothermia would kill within 4 to 6 hours. Captain Herndon refused to leave his bridge. Witnesses who survived reported seeing him standing at attention, hand on the rail as the ship slipped beneath the surface. The Central America disappeared at 2112 hours. From first leak to total loss, 56 hours. From the order to abandon ship to final sinking, 5 hours, 12 minutes. Of the 479 men still aboard, 50 survived the night. They clung to debris. Wooden planks, deck chairs, sections of railing torn free in the breakup. The hurricane had moved north, but 12-foot swells remained. Complete darkness, no moon, no stars. Men called out to each other to maintain morale, to know they weren't alone. Voices faded as hypothermia and exhaustion took hold. At 0530 on September 13th, the Norwegian bark Ellen spotted survivors. Captain Anvik lowered boats and recovered 49 men. One more would be found later that day by another vessel. Combined with the 99 souls saved by the marine, The final count stood at 153 survivors from 578 aboard, 425 dead, including Captain William Herndon. The immediate aftermath was catastrophic. 3 tons of gold gone. The loss represented roughly 5% of the entire California gold output for 1857. The missing bullion triggered bank runs across the East Coast. The Ohio Life Insurance and Trust Company failed within weeks. The Panic of 1857 devastated the American economy, bankrupting 5,000 businesses and throwing millions into unemployment. But the human toll ran deeper than economics. Entire families never came home. Miners who'd spent 3 years in California goldfields, who'd survived claim disputes, disease, and violence, who'd finally struck modest fortunes, drowned 160 miles from their destinations. Business owners carrying payroll for hundreds of employees. Letters found in survivors' pockets described wives waiting at docks, children excited to meet fathers they'd never seen. The ship itself became legend, the greatest treasure loss in maritime history. 3 tons of gold resting in 8,000 feet of water, 160 miles off the Carolina coast. Multiple expeditions over the next 130 years tried to locate the wreck. All failed. The ocean is vast. The technology didn't exist. The Central America became a ghost story. Until 1988. Tommy Thompson, a 36-year-old ocean engineer from Ohio, had been researching the wreck since 1983. He'd studied newspaper accounts, survivor testimonies, weather patterns, and ocean current data. Using computational modeling unavailable in the 19th century, he calculated a search zone 1,400 square miles wide. Thompson raised $12.5 million from 161 private investors. He designed a remotely operated vehicle called Nemo, equipped with sonar, cameras, and manipulator arms capable of working at 8,000 feet. The technology was cutting edge for 1988. The risks were enormous. The expedition launched in July 1988. The research vessel Arctic Discoverer towed sonar arrays across the search zone, mapping the seafloor in strips. They found shipwrecks, dozens of them. The Atlantic seabed off the Carolinas is a graveyard of maritime disasters spanning centuries. On September 11, 1988, 131 years and 1 day after the ship went down, Nemo's cameras captured footage of a ship's wheel lying on the sea floor. Thompson's team spent the next several weeks confirming the identity. They found the paddle wheel housings, the engine, scattered deck fittings, and the gold. Bars of gold lay scattered across the debris field, coins in enormous quantities preserved in the cold, oxygen-poor environment. Double eagles, the $20 gold pieces that were the currency of the gold rush era. Ingots stamped with assayer marks from San Francisco firms. Raw gold dust still sealed in leather pouches. Over the next 3 years, Thompson's team recovered approximately $150 million worth of gold and artifacts. The discovery ignited decades of legal battles. The insurance companies that had paid claims in 1857 argued they owned the cargo. The investors who funded Thompson's expedition demanded their share. The state of South Carolina claimed jurisdiction over the wreck site. Tommy Thompson himself would later be convicted of fraud and held in contempt of court for failing to disclose the recovery's full value. But the historical significance transcended the legal chaos. The artifacts recovered from the Central America provided unprecedented insight into Gold Rush-era America. Personal effects revealed intimate details of passengers' lives. Letters, daguerreotypes, clothing, jewelry, tools. The gold itself told stories. Each ingot bore marks identifying its origin, the miner or company that extracted it, the assayer who verified its purity. The wreck site became a time capsule, preserving a single moment from September 12, 1857. The moment when the accumulated wealth and dreams of 3 years of California gold fever slipped beneath the waves, taking 425 souls with it. Captain Herndon's body was never recovered. In 1860, the U.S. Navy named a coal depot in Virginia, Fort Herndon, in his honor. His decision to evacuate women and children first, to remain at his post as his ship sank, embodied the naval tradition of command responsibility. He understood what abandoning ship meant. He did it anyway because the alternative was unconscionable. The SS Central America, rests 7,200 feet below the surface, 160 miles east of Cape Hatteras. The wreck site is protected under federal law. Most of the treasure has been recovered, but the ship herself remains where she fell, a memorial to 425 people who were going home and didn't make it. The hurricane that killed them was never named. In 1857, the practice didn't exist. It was simply recorded as a severe storm off the Carolina coast. One storm among thousands that have swept the Atlantic over the centuries. But for the people aboard the Central America, it was the only storm that mattered. The storm that lasted 30 hours. The storm that broke a ship built to carry dreams across oceans. The storm that killed Captain Herndon and 424 others who fought alongside him until the water rose too high and the fight was over. That gold sits in museums now, behind glass, beautifully preserved. People look at it and see treasure. They should see what it cost. Not just the lives lost in 1857, but the decades of legal battles, the obsession, the fraud convictions, the fortunes spent and lost trying to reclaim what the ocean took. The greatest deep-sea recovery in history. That's how it's remembered. But recoveries don't erase losses. They only prove that some things buried too deep eventually come back to light, whether we're ready for them or not.